We're reviewing how the first quarter of the year was for NASD OTC market. It is a platform for unlisted securities, and we're talking to the managing director of the NASD OTC, Mr. Bola Ajomale. Thank you so much for joining me on the program.
Hi, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. How was the market in the first quarter of the year? Was it well? Did it go very well for the securities?
Well, the first quarter was a bit slow, as expected. We had a peak period. We had a peak performance in the third quarter of last year. By the last quarter of last year, we saw some dips in volumes and in values, and the first quarter this year, unfortunately, was very slow.
So, what do you think was responsible for that? The investors not particularly trade as much, or was it as a result of the macroeconomic headwinds that most markets actually had to contend with?
Well, what tends to happen in the first quarter of the year, most years, is that it's a bit slower anyway. We normally expect it to be a bit slow. That's even being borne out by the numbers we're seeing now for April, which are looking a bit higher than what we saw in February. February was actually the slowest month for us. Now, what tends to happen is that it's slow in the first part of the year because if we're coming back from the holiday season, investment activity hasn't really picked up. But now is that there's sustained wait to see how Nigeria's policy would unfold, having to be implemented, and what the policies actually are. Well, is now relatively without budget, so again, there's still a bit of a wait-and-see approach from quite a few investors. And yes, a lot of attention is being paid to international investors, but also to local investors as well. They do want to see where Nigeria is headed. They do want to see what they're going to do, how their currency is going to pan out against foreign exchanges, so against foreign currencies. So unless we get a perspective on all of those, then there will still be a certain amount of which you cannot invest in uncertainty. You do need to have a certain air of stability and certainty before you can go ahead and start staking cash down on investments. So there will be a bit of a wait, yes.
But then, despite the slow sense that you actually said happened for the first quarter, we noticed that there was an increase in the volume of traded securities compared to the same period for 2015. So what actually led to this increase?
Oh, there's a significant increase. Well, again, it's a market on an upward trajectory. So when we say there's a slowdown, it means that the trajectory upwards that we're expecting didn't happen because there's a slowdown. Not as if these volumes we've seen in the first quarter, a bit over $1 billion was traded in the first quarter. Not very large numbers when you compare it to the numbers on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, but they are actually significant numbers for a market that was never documented in the first case. So this time, the first quarter last year, we were trading maybe 200-300 million for the first quarter. So yes, there's a significant difference, and that just shows the impact of the growth of the market, the speed at which the market is growing, and the things that we're expecting to come in the future.
So talk to us a little bit about the strategies that you and your team will be putting in place to ensure that the market moves quickly from the slowdown we've seen in the first quarter.
Recall, we're an over-the-counter market, and essentially we can trade virtually every single instrument once it is a public instrument. So first things we do is we identify every single instrument that is public, that is tradable, and we create a structure around it. We're actually migrating into being an alternative investment market as opposed to a simple OTC for equities. So you'd actually find eventually that we've got rules passed right now for equity-linked notes. We have got market makers in place. We've got various operators in the market putting structured instruments together that we can then start trading on the platform. So very soon you'll be seeing some form of derivative, and I use this word with a lot of caution, not derivatives in the swaps terms and options terms, but in terms of derived instruments from underlying assets. You'll be seeing quite a few of those coming into the market. Again, we're migrating upstream into assisting the SMEs, which we believe is a very large chunk of the economy. We also are working towards building a private equity market, which we think will launch by this second quarter. So what we're doing is we're expanding the scope of the market, we're expanding the width of the market, deepening it as well, but the width certainly to capture all sorts of instruments that normally are not traded on the traditional exchange.
And how are you factoring in some of the issues that might, come up, especially that's still in our faces: inflation, interest rate hikes, and of course the foreign exchange policies?
Well, until those policies are sorted out, until we do get a clear articulation of what those policies mean and where we're headed with those policies and how they're going to be implemented, then there will be a lot of waiting. There's nothing we can do to stop that. It is going to be a wait, and I would also recommend that investors do wait until it gets sorted out. You cannot invest in a very unclear picture. You do need some kind of transparency. You do need a certain amount of clarity before you can go and stake your cash in an environment. For local and international investors, it's critical.
So are you British or bullish for the second quarter?
I'm sorry?
Are you bullish or British for the second quarter? Since we've noticed a slowdown in the first quarter, even though we saw an increase in the volume of securities traded, are you confident that the second quarter will pick up?
Yeah. I believe we will announce a budget. I believe it would. We will articulate our policies, and the interpretation of those will have a very strong effect on how the markets react. I am quite expectant. I'm very hopeful that I think really we have is an extremely knowledgeable and capable team that's putting our policy together. Implementation, and we've never been short of that actually. We've never been short of great teams. The implementation, I think there's a certain amount of dedication to this particular set that I believe they should be able to implement very effectively. And so on the back of that, I expect that the policies will come out, the implementation will be as expected, and if that happens, then I think we are set for maybe a slowdown in the decline, and by the third quarter, then some kind of rebound. A very cautious rebound. Maybe by fourth quarter, we then start seeing things picking up. With every day we're losing, though, and this is a sound of caution, with every day we're losing, it becomes that much more difficult for us to actually rebound again. So I think, the earlier we get it done, the better, and then we can have some kind of recovery.
Well, Bola Ajimale, thank you so much for joining me on the program this morning, and of course talking us through first quarter and reviewing the first quarter, I beg your pardon, of 2016 for the NASD OTC market.